Hi, everyone. I'm John Lux. I'm the Executive Director of Film Florida. Welcome to Film Florida Friday. Film Florida Fridays are interactive conversations about current topics, initiatives, and relationship building in Florida's screen production industry. Today, we're talking about character voice acting and recording. In a moment, our guests will introduce themselves and in a moment, our guests will introduce themselves. I'll ask some questions. During that time, we're going to ask that everybody keep their microphones on mute to avoid background noise. After we've gotten through initial questions, as always, we'll open it up to the audience for questions and conversation. At that time, we're going to ask that you use the hand raising function so we can call on you. We obviously want this to be conversational and interactive. We also don't want everybody talking at the same time. We're going to ask everybody to keep their questions and comments brief in the interest of time and out of the fairness to others that want the opportunity. As always, Film Florida Fridays are free, but we hope you'll consider donating $20.23 to our 2023 fundraising campaign. The donation link will be posted in the chat box throughout the discussion, or you can find it on our website. And with that, let's jump right in and have our panelists introduce themselves. Andrea, let's start with you.
Hi, it's Andrea Baker, and I am from Orlando, the Winter Park area. I grew up here and then moved away for school and ended up being an athlete in college and starting performing in college with music. And I did a play and I loved it. And I ended up deciding on a whim to do a cross-country road trip, but I packed everything in my car and ended up in LA and signed up a year lease. And I stayed there for 20 years and created a career on camera and off camera. And voiceover has been my sweet spot and has brought me so much joy and fun and friendship, and I have loved it. And so, yeah, I'm back in Florida now with my family, and I love living here, and I love being a part of this network. So that's my story.
Excellent. Mariette, how about you?
Hello, my name is Mariette Shayeb Mendez, and I am talking to you guys from Miami, Florida. I have been a voice actress now for 5 years, but originally for about 12 to 13 years, I was working in TV and film production management. So I was a coordinator, I was an associate producer, I was a PA, I was a story PA, I ordered the lunches, whatever anybody needed on my productions. And I always loved working on big productions in Florida. So I'm hoping more of those productions come back. But now I've also just transitioned into voice work and media management. So thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. And Jennifer, you're last.
Hi, Jennifer Hale. I have been a working actor for 4 decades, my entire life. And I started in Birmingham, Alabama, many years ago. And then I expanded into Atlanta. I worked both cities, and that led me out to LA to break into the big time where I booked. I started on camera, then quickly went into voice acting. And I moved to LA for the on camera acting. And a couple years in, made a voiceover tape just to make some money, and boom, that was it. My career in LA took off, and I've been doing it ever since. I still visit on camera every couple years just for the fun of it, because it is really fun. And I've done hundreds of episodes of animation. I actually I actually have a Guinness record. I've done more games than any other woman on the planet. And I have done tons and tons of commercial work, narration. I've found that diversifying has been the key to steady income. So methodical diversification and listening to my agents and reps and the market around me. I constantly check in to see where I'm at, am I on trend, etc. I started a site for both working actors and working voice actors and aspiring voice actors. We're now expanding into on-camera help as well. We have 86 different coaches who are top working actors, casting directors, voice directors, and the coaching is by the minute. We have classes, we have like step-by-step career path guides you can opt into, all that kind of thing. So that's where a lot of my energy goes right now, is into Skills Hub, my company.
Excellent. Mariette, you had mentioned that you were in the we'll call it the other side of the industry for a little while. How did you find your way into the voice side of things?
Well, I studied broadcast journalism with a mass communications focus at the University of South Florida, and I got a minor also in gerontology, which that I didn't really use too much in reality TV, but I worked so for 12 years. I had all this like kind of undercover journalism kind of experience. And then one day on Craigslist, I found an ad that said looking for native English speakers in Miami. And it was down the street from my house. So I was like, all right, Craigslist ad. I should be safe. I even gave my mom the address. I was like, just in case, here we go. This is where I'm going. And I show up and it's a real TV studio that they had gotten a huge dubbing contract with the direct creators of Captain Tsubasa in Japan. And they literally chose me to do the 52 episodes for one of the lead characters, Taro Misaki. So that's my first ever job, was those 52 episodes. And then I was able to, I guess I just always did weird voices. So I was almost like 8 different characters in that series. So through that, I started meeting new people and I just kept working in the dubbing industry. And now I've been doing it for 5 years. I got signed to like all the 4 different agencies here in Miami, but I'm freelance. I don't have any agents. They're just like dubbing companies that get these contracts. So I've been lucky enough to make everything here in Miami, Florida. So
excellent. Now, Andrea, you talked about how you moved out to LA. Talk about how you specifically found your way into the voice side of things.
So I went out to LA completely green with a roommate from college. My parents like basically disowned me I showed up on a Friday, signed a year lease on the Sunday, and they were like furious. But I went in and got within a few, I made a list of what to accomplish. I gave myself a year. And within 3 months, I had accomplished the list. And I had gotten an agent, I had gotten a commercial, and I had gotten in the union. So that was a huge thing. And then my agent at the time decided to partner with a voiceover agent who they were going to split commission. So 5%, because she wanted more, that voiceover agent wanted more young voices. And my agent had a lot of younger, I was sort of the oldest in his stable. And so that's how I met my now agent. I personally went in and met with her and I said, how can I make this work? And she recommended it, instead of being on this group, it was actually a cassette tape. this group cassette tape. She said, you should go get your own cassette tape of just your voice, and told me where to go. And I went to Carol Kimball, and who's still a casting director today. And she helped me make my own reel. And then that relationship stayed together for a few years. And then Stephen, my former agent, left that agency and I didn't go with him. So they severed their relationship. And then Arlene picked me up as a full client, and I've literally been with her ever since. And she got me started. I started mostly commercials initially. Then I did a few video games early on. And then I got into, I was like this voice of Boston Market for 7 years. And I did these campaign things. And I, at the same time, was doing on camera, because much like Jen, I'm like, I'm an actor. I'll do anything for money. I can keep my clothes on, and that's negotiable. And I wanted to do whatever I could to work. And so I went to her and to my other agent and said, where is the work? And I would do whatever whatever industrial, you name it. I had no, I only do film. That's not a thing. But I did at that time get my first film. And then I was able to go in and do my post-production for my character. And the director, Gary Ross, at the time said, why don't you go up to lunch? Which I'm a very much improv yes and. So yes, and let me change whatever I was going to do. I'm going to lunch with Gary now. And then Gary said, why don't you come back after? Because we're now doing group, which I didn't know what that was. And so after lunch, he threw me into the group and I learned how to do post-production looping. And then that casting director started hiring me regularly. And that became a real steady income for me, along with the other things that were more, hit or miss or irregular. That became like a real sort of day job as an actor, which was amazing. So I think
and I want to talk a little bit about Loop Group a little bit later. So we're going to come back to that. Jennifer, I want to ask you about preparation. Talk about your process for preparing for a recording session.
Number one thing is get the body warm. Like get the voice awakened, get the guys, it's 6:43 in the morning where I am. So I'm not as warmed up as I'd like to be. But get the body warm, get the brain going. For me, everything comes out of the writing. And honestly, the process and preparation is the years and years and years that I put into this. I remember in my 20s when I had moved to LA, I was bemoaning the fact that I wasn't as good as I wanted to be. I wanted to be amazing. My ego was like, I need to be fantastic at this. And I was like, I'm not. And fortunately, I had a sort of internal smack upside the head that was like, just stop. Just stop. Show up each day, put in the time. And in 20 years, no joke, in 20 years, then you get to weigh in on whether or not you're any good at this. And that's really the process, like just showing up every day, specifically for each job. It's, is my body moving? Is my voice awake? I love to sing to warm up because I'm a singer first. And it comes out of the writing. Everything comes out of the writing. Writers make the world go round. Writers are everything. Without them, we have nothing. To me, they should be the rock stars, but I think most of them would rather hide under a rock than have the kind of attention that we get, right? But I read the script. I was once taught by, I can't remember her name. She was a daytime drama, as they like to call it, casting director. And she said, read the script 5 times, for example, for an audition. Read the script 5 times before you make any decisions. And I teach that to this day, which is you want to read it for sort of a universal understanding. What is happening here? You want to read it for, now, who am I in this? You want to read it for, what is everyone saying to me? What is everyone saying about me? What do the stage directions say? Just keep reading it just to get your whole view of the thing. Then you can go into, all right, how do I tackle this? Because you'll miss so much going with that myopic, like, okay, how do I do this? And I never, ever work from how. How do I say this? To me, that is one of my internal sins. Like, no, it is always what. What do I want the other person to do? What do I want them to feel? What do I want to accomplish here? What do I want to change in the world? What can I affect in the story? It's always what.
Excellent. Excellent. Andrea, preparation.
I'm much like Jen. I'm a student. Jen is one of my most favorite mentors. We met doing a show together, and in the audition room, she walked in wearing chaps because she's a horsey girl like I am. And I was like, I don't know who that is, but she's now going to be my best friend. And we ended up not on that job. Like, I don't know how much longer later, but not too long later, we both separately got on the same cartoon series and got to work together for 7 seasons and a movie and get horsey together and go on trips together. And so I am a big singer too. I am not a singer first. Nobody else wants to hear me sing, but I love to sing and I sing. I will put my, and I love the Spotify. You can have all the lyrics. So I set up my little Spotify and I'll even record myself singing so that I can make sure that at least I'm hitting a range before I record. And I did not do that this morning. And I also am not sounding as amazing as Jen because I'm only using my little laptop microphone while Jen is sounding like so professional, which I love. But I'm a big singer and movement. And I even will do movement between takes. Like if I feel like I'm in a situation where it's sort of like I'm locking in some way of saying something, not like unintentionally, I will do jumping. That's my little booth. So I come out here and do jumping jacks or, do some yoga stretching or just go for a walk around the block and come back. Cause I think physical movement and getting yourself out of whatever little locked in thing you get and remembering again, like all that prep, like who am I, where am I coming from? What am I doing? And most specifically, who am I speaking to? Like I have a little thing on above my microphone and it's just a little focus point. And I like put a person always. If I'm not talking to a person, if it's general, it sucks every time. So very specific to who I'm speaking to.
Interesting.
If I can add to what Andrea is saying, as performers, our body is our instrument. And so I take very seriously what I put into my body. I live my life, but I'm very conscious. Like I don't eat crap. I keep it healthy. I keep my cardiac capacity really strong because without fail, we're human. If you go into a high stakes, high pressure situation, whether it's an audition or a job you love or a meeting you really want to have, you're going to lose a portion of your capacity. You're going to lose part of your breathing capacity. You're going to lose part of your thinking capacity, because it's natural. It's a high stakes environment. It is a natural adrenal response. So I like to overbuild. I like to overbuild my capacity to function so that when I go in, I've got enough to do things I'm proud of. Excuse my dog scratching in the background.
Good point. Now, Mariette, you, as you mentioned, you haven't been doing this a whole long time.
No,
What
but
have you- talk about your
I record
preparation.
I record about 2 or 3 times a week. So I have to have my voice ready. I've never smoked cigarettes in my life. So that's one thing I will always like go down by. I drink a lot of water. I don't smoke cigarettes. I have a lot of raw honey and spicy soup beforehand. I sing as well right before. If it's for a specific character I'm going to go in for, then I'll prepare with that voice. But in my type of voice acting, I have to be ready for anything. So I'll go in and they'll be like, hey, so today you've got to do like 3 different novellas. You're going to be a hostage in one, and another one you're going to be an old lady in a Turkish soap opera. Then we're going to need you to be like a cartoon fish. And then we're going to need you to do this other thing, So I do a lot of just on the spot. You have to just be like ready. Before I go in, I try to be ready for anything, like whatever they need. They need me to like sing underwater, I'll do it. So thank you guys so much for having me on this panel. Like you're so accomplished, and I'm in awe. So thank you so much.
We're happy to have you. Now, Andrea, as you mentioned, you're a SAG actor, and you've had both on-screen and voice acting. Is there something unique about voice acting, other than that it's just your voice as opposed to being on camera, that is specifically different for you than the on-camera stuff? Like, is there something that in your preparation or how you approach it or anything like that is specifically different?
So the main difference is, you can do it in your pajamas, or you can do it, you don't have to brush your teeth or whatever. That's truly the main difference. That this was when I commented, like, this answer might be 3 words, because really, I even now, I used to not even memorize, but I even now pretty much memorize scripts. It comes to me pretty easily. Like, once I've read it a few times, and once I know the through line, like the words come pretty easily. I mean, I have the script there, but I try to do at least a handful of takes, or, a couple of takes off book even. So no, to be honest, my preparation for on camera and off camera is just, the only difference is I don't have to worry about the exterior or what it looks like to anyone, which is great. So I just have to, everything else, the through line, the emotional line, the preparation, like where I'm coming from, who I'm talking to, all of those things are the same either way for me.
Good. Now, you also mentioned the loop group stuff, and I wanted to talk about that. For those that aren't aware or don't know what that is, explain what loop groups are and what it's like working in them.
Well, John, that's how we met, right?
Yep.
Or no, well, I was doing the cartoon, but then I did a loop group job here in Orlando, which doesn't usually, it hasn't happened to me before or since. But looping is, it's post-production audio digital recording. So they call it ADR. And it is every film or TV, any sort of visual project, every scene that they've shot, they've mic'd the principals, and anyone that's not a principal in the background is, so they're pretending to speak. And if you watched a movie and you only heard that and saw that, it would take you right out of the experience. So in the mix, they have a layer of sound that is those voices in the background. It can also include things like breaths and efforts for, like, all of Julia Roberts' stuff in Runaway Bride. That was me. Like Baywatch, when they would come out of the water and go, like, they didn't catch that when they're shooting it in Hawaii in the water. It's someone like me on a soundstage going, coming out of the water. So it runs the gamut. It's also like in the movie, I forget the movie, with Mark Wahlberg's the rock star singer, and we had to do so many layers of the rock concerts where there's, 100,000 people in the crowd or 50,000 people in the crowd. And there was 12 of us on a stage cheering and cheering and cheering as if we're the group. Or in Mad Men, when there's a phone in the background, or a TV show, like I used to do this, my favorite job ever was something that would be done so fast because it was very small. Seal Award did a very intimate family drama. They were always inside in the house, so there wasn't all these exterior things or crowd groups, but the TV would be on in the background. So the voice of the reporter, stand-up reporter in the background, one of us would be doing those things. So when you're watching it, it just, if you notice it, we didn't do it right. Like, it should just be a layer of sound that makes what you're watching seem real, and also allows them to turn it to the level that you will focus on the main characters. So if they recorded it all together, they couldn't mix it in a way that can focus you on the main characters. So it's a layer of sound that's necessary for every single production.
I do that in dubbing as well. I didn't know it was called looping or anything like that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's actually a really fun part of the process. You're in, whether it's the editing or the post-production on the audio side, like, it can be stressful, and you're worried about every little sound and every little frame of video, and you get to the loop group, and it's actually a very fun part of the process. I've always enjoyed sitting in on loop group stuff. Jennifer,
I will say that I describe it as a improv group that I get paid to be in, because that's what it is.
Right. That's exactly. Yep. Jennifer, you had mentioned you're a Guinness World Record for being the most prolific female voice game actor in the world. You've worked on a ton of titles. You mentioned a couple of them. There's some Marvel stuff in there. There's some Star Wars in there. Talk about being an official world record holder for that.
Well, I found out by accident. Steve Bloom holds the record for men, and they had a whole official thing with him. And I found out on Twitter. I was like, wait, what? What? And I looked it up, and I was like, oh yeah. Women are still catching up. It's fun. I always joke that I have a Guinness because I like real estate. I wanted to buy a house. And when the first game I ever did was tied to the first animated project I ever did, which is Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego. And then subsequent to that, the game session is so different to an animated session. In an animation session, it's like a radio play. Now things have evolved since the after times. Before times, we would all be in a room together and we would take turns like a radio play. Nowadays, there's a lot of individual recording. I don't live in Los Angeles anymore, and so I'll get recorded. Sometimes we'll do group records, but basically you're taking your turn. It's like your turn to speak, your turn to speak, your turn to speak. And then a game session it's more like what Mariette does, where it's a very concentrated, very intense session. It's a 4-hour one-person show. And my peers at the time were like, I'm not doing that. That's too hard. That's not as fun. I don't like it. And I was like, I'll do it. I was always, I'll do it. And I really loved the format. I loved once I started to understand it, because we work out of sequence. We'll do something from the very beginning of the game or the end of the game or the middle, and we hop, each line is from a different point on the timeline. And it's also 90% of game records are cold reads. Like I've had titles, like, as you said, there's a bunch of Marvel titles. I found out at a panel honoring Stan Lee a couple of years ago that I guess I've done more Marvel titles than any female, not men, but female. It's crazy. Steve probably has the record for men there too, but in let's see, where was I going? I totally sidetracked myself. But so where was I? Darn it, I lost my thread with that tangent.
You were talking about reading out of order and
yes, cold reading. Yes, cold reading. So you show up and you get the script. So the titles, for example, there's a successful game franchise I did called Mass Effect, and I was one of the leads. And in that one, for example, like I showed up, I saw the script, I did the line, 2-3 times, and it goes to market. It's cold reading on the spot. And most games are that way. So you really have to, again, it ties into what Andrea was saying about the improv and all that stuff, just thinking on your feet and just trusting it. And also we rely on the very much unspoken heroes of the session, who are the voice directors. Voice directors are so important.
Now, in all these different characters, is there one that's a favorite to you or one that sticks out for a particularly challenging session?
Definitely some challenging sessions for sure. I think the thing that I love the most is the sheer variety that I get to do. Because I get to be everything from right in here, to like really serious people saving the universe to total destructive villains, that is my favorite thing. To not have been put in a box I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. And now, Mariette, you talked about your management roles within production before becoming a character voice actor. Talk a little bit about that transition, and has it been important to have the experience kind of quote unquote behind the camera before you went in front of the microphone?
I think definitely as a production person who's been editing and filming and making graphics and working in journalism for like 10 years, when you finally get behind the mic or when you finally get in front of the camera, sorry, or in front of the mic, it is definitely a transition because you have to step up, you can't be like scared little mouse anymore, So for me, that was the most difficult part was like, no, you're doing this. No, you're signed to this like big Japanese franchise. You're an actress now. Like, I don't know what happened, but there you go. Like, from Craigslist to like that to they picked my voice to be an original animation for Treasure Trekkers. So they would use my voice here in Miami and I would record to a blank screen. And then somebody in Spain would make an actual cartoon about me. It was just like, it's just out of this world. I can't even believe it's real. So for me, that was the hardest part was like going from like accounting clerk, like, kind of dorky nerd behind the scenes to then like, no, like you can do this, use your voice and you can be strong. And like, so it's been a great thing for my life as well. Cause just finding something in your soul that you can bring out and something about you never knew you had inside. So yeah.
Now
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I got onto that. I started as a PA first. In Birmingham, you did all the jobs, right? And the value in that was incredible because what you learn, I would offer to anybody interested, always work behind the glass or behind the camera or whatever, because what you can bring to the party. I'll never forget when I first started using Pro Tools to edit my stuff. I don't use Pro Tools anymore. It's too complex. I use Twisted Wave. But by editing, I could see where I was giving the engineer, I could either be a problem or a solution. But I would never know that unless I was in there editing my own stuff, like for auditions and on camera, because I understood framing. I was working on a movie of the week once, some NBC thing, and I could see the director and the DP were having a framing issue because I had framed shots, because I understood it. And I was like, I could just kneel in the scene instead of standing. And the director literally went, genius, just because you have behind the scenes experience, it can help the project and help you so much in this process. And you become an asset to the team in a much bigger way. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, Mariette, you have both Hispanic and Arab in your family, which is not a common combination. And I know that's, helped you, but also been some challenges. Talk about how having those different dialects has helped you in terms of potentially getting some jobs, but also some of the challenges that leads to as well.
Yes, definitely. Well, one of the big challenges is my name. My name is Maria Josephine Chayev Mendez Mudaler Aguilera. So no one even thinks that my English is going to be, clear or whatever. So first off, that was my first thing is like on the casting sheet, when they see your name, like what's a name, So so for me, it's been about proving myself. Like, no, wait, this is I can do this. And yes, I am part Syrian and part Cuban. My mom came here on a tugboat from Cuba with my brother on the Mario boat lift. She was a professor and she had airplane tickets to actually come to America, but they forced her on a bus for 5 hours out of her hometown to Havana. And then they put her on a boat with my brother and they sent her over here by herself. So she was a math professor in Cuba and she came here and she just told me about all these stories of how, people didn't respect her because of her accent or they didn't think that she was educated. So ever since I was little, I was in her stomach and she was getting a master's degree at St. Thomas University and she got a full grant. So she says that I've been in college since I was like a fetus. So for me, it's always been about like being really proud of like my culture. Puedo hablar español, but also I speak English. Like for me, that's so important. And getting the opportunity to work here in Miami, that there's so many different cultures, that's been the amazing part, that there is a place where we can make stuff now. You know, we don't have to go to Hollywood. Like I would love to go to LA or California, but I mean, I don't have an agent and I don't think I would really stand out. So here it's kind of like being a big fish in a little pond kind of. And we have like our own, we have our own lane that I guess we work with a lot of Portuguese clients, a lot of French clients, a lot of Brazilian clients. So we work with people like all over the world, that maybe like we fill in the gap, I guess, in that like big streaming king that's going on. Cause we've been making streamers for like 5 years nonstop. It's actually pretty cool that it all comes like from Miami. Like all the Telemundo stuff that's being put into English, it's like, it's through Miami, but also we put it into English. So I've been so proud to be able to rep both of my cultures. Yeah. And as an Arab woman, I'm not really allowed to speak or be too like out front. So I'm like the rebellious cousin, you know, of the family. It's been really cool to like, you know, just be out here and just try my best. So thank you for giving me a time to speak. Thanks.
Absolutely. Now, and your acting or your voice acting credits include English native voice dubbing for novellas and animation series. It's a different process in terms of saying like, here's your script, you know, to do it from the original recording, but you're doing a lot of dubbing into into English. So talk about the difference between a regular voice acting job versus the dubbing process for a whole translation into English.
Yes, and definitely a lot of people think dubbing is like, you know, the mismatched lips and it's just very sloppy, but you know, we've been trying to make it into an art form, you know, so we try to breathe with the character. We try to give respect to the original actor's performance. So like Majida Isa, she's like a huge Colombian actress. And then I was chosen from Telemundo to be like her English voice for all the different novellas. So when the fans would hear that novella in Africa, they were like, oh, it's the same character. If she would do 5 novellas, like it would be my voice in those as well. So you have to be strong. You have to follow their voice, their lips, and just like what they feel, you know. So a lot of times you're hearing it in one language and it's like, you know, a hostage situation. So it's like, and it's really, really fast. And you have to hear yourself in the other ear and then also match the lips. So it is difficult. I definitely love dubbing from Spanish to English because that's a language I know. So that's been like the best thing, or from Italian to English, because it's an easier thing to I guess adapt to. But yeah, it's a challenge.
Now, Jennifer, you've obviously done a variety of different characters. Is there a difference in the way you approach a job or the execution for when you are doing voice work for movies, commercials, TV shows, video games, anything like that? Or is it pretty consistent?
I would say it's pretty consistent. There are stylistic changes because it's consistent because everything is story. Commercials are a little quick story. Games are these long epic stories. A film is a fairly short story relative to a game. Everything is story. It all goes back for me to sort of the Joseph Campbell framework, which is, there are all these stories that we tell over and over as humans, and there's only a certain number of them, and within those stories there are archetypes, and I'm fulfilling a piece of the story in every one of these situations. And then it comes down to style. It's just, in a commercial, you have very specific considerations. Like you'll have a lot of artifices, like introducing. I don't walk around saying introducing, but I'll have to find an organic way to make that work. And early on, I found the little tricks for saying the phone number slowly and clearly and doing it organically. Like things like I imagine someone's writing it down, so I need to take my time with it. Little things like that, little hacks like that. But again, it's all story, and then there's style and tone. I mean, within animation, there's tons of different styles, especially nowadays. Within games, there's tons of different styles. I mean, TV shows, you've got like your sitcom versus your nighttime drama. Where everything you're just thinking, and it's like, wow. versus a sitcom. You got to put it out there. It's all very stylistically different.
Now, Andrea, have you gone into sessions? Well, I guess let me start that over. Like, when you go to a session, do directors say have a specific thought of how they want a character to sound, or do they say, this is kind of who the person is? What do you think it sounds like? Talk about some of those differences between some of the directing.
Yeah, so I've had experiences where they're my least favorite experiences, when a director is locked into how they want to hear it sound, because they're cutting me off at the knees. If I've shown up and I have done my preparation and I have a version, and they might not like that version, and they can, maybe, but where I come from is like an emotional line, right? Or, it's an interior line versus the cadence or the accent on the line. So I'm coming at it from this character that I've created, and this is how I think they would say it in this moment with these factors that I've worked on in advance. And if I show up and they're like, no, I want to hear it, line, like get a voiceover director giving a line read is, I think, like, it's just like the lowest form of directing. You're not being collaborative. You're being dictator. You have a vision, and you're not seeing that this person that you have hired is bringing something to the table that you don't have. And it might be worth at least complimenting and encouraging that behavior and massaging them into the way that you want to hear it, in a way that makes sense to the performance, versus, no, do it again, and I want it to be like this. I mean, it's kind of, it really just is like an ice bath. It's like an ice bath. If someone does that in a session. But it's happened. It does happen. It definitely does happen.
Yeah, Jennifer, tell us a little bit about that from your perspective. You obviously have plenty of experience, but do people come in and say, this is how I want it to sound, and just kind of hope you execute it, or are they a little bit more, receptive to your vision?
Oh, that happens. There are certainly varying levels of competency in the voice direction chair. And I always think of the client. Honestly, I think of the writer and the client. And my job is to solve the big problem. And I just have to set aside, whatever happens in between and get her done. I love it when there's a voice director who understands acting and can give me an internal motivation. I have trained myself when someone says louder. I've trained myself to find an internal reason why organically I would say it louder. I've just simply built a translation machine. And if somebody gives a line reading because they've just got it in their head, I think to myself, because it happens with really good voice directors as well, I think to myself, they have clients back there in their ear, producers and everybody who they have to serve, and they're in a crunch, and we have X number of lines to get done today. That's actually always my first question in a game session. Besides, hi, how are you? What's our count for the day? Because it tells me how much time we have to, how to budget that time and where my energy is going to go. Because my energy is the thing that our energy is the thing we must spend so carefully, right? And so specifically and so intentionally. But, line readings happen. There's a musicality, and I was a jingle singer, in my early days. So I just go, okay, I'll sing the jingle for you. Let's do it. And the difficulty is when someone does not have an ear. I was in a session once. Thank God it was a phone patch. It was in the before times, because I could look at the engineer and go, and he was like, because this person literally said to me over the phone, no, you're saying duh. I need you to say duh. And I was like, I can't hear the difference.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept trying and doing exactly what he said. And he go, no. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay. So what I ended up doing was just giving like 15 different versions of duh, of course, in blocks of 3 or 4, because they can't sort them out if you give them 15 at once. It's too much to track. And it's, but yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's a thing we deal with. It's not personal. Just get her done.
Yeah, yeah. And now for everybody in the audience, we got like one or two more questions, and then we'll open it up. So if you do have questions, go ahead and use the hand raising function, and we'll start lining up, and then I'll be able to call on each of you. And Muriette, I wanted to ask you a similar question in terms of, sometimes when you're doing dubbing for things that already exist, you can hear the type of character it is. It may be in a different language.
Right.
Are you trying to give it? Are you trying to match that personality, or do you sometimes try and put a different spin on it because the languages are different, as you go? What's your approach to that?
Well, definitely. I think I have like, I guess, a closer pipeline to that client, because like I'll have the client in my ear a lot of times. So they will tell you like, hey, could you sound more like this? Or and it is kind of it is a little cringy when they're like, yes, could you make it more, like, and I'm like, what does mean? All right, cool, we'll try it. So here we go, so it's just like, just throwing at them whatever you can, because sometimes they can't even vocalize it. So they'll be like, we want you excited but scared, but you're surprised. I'm like, all right, here we go. So it is, but I definitely try to mimic a lot in the dubbing. I try to respect the original actors' voice and how they acted it, like they already had the intention. So it's a little bit of a cheat sheet for me. I don't have to memorize lines or anything like that, because I use Dub Assist, which is like just it shows you all the script, and it kind of highlights where you have to go next in the dubbing process. So it helps when you have to say thousands of words, because you know exactly like where you have to go next. But definitely you just follow the intention of the actor in your ear. I love just like hearing them and then trying to match it,
Yeah.
But yeah, louder does not mean louder. It means like more robust. That's what I learned. Like, do not yell into the mic. Don't.
Right. Well, and there's always the great feedback of, you don't quite have it. I'm not really sure what's missing, but you don't quite have it. Can we do it again?
Yeah.
That's always helpful. Andrea, I want to ask you, and this is going to be for all three of you, a little bit of story time. You've worked on a lot of different titles. Is there one, when somebody says, wow, you have a cool job, is there one story you kind of come up with and to illustrate that, yes, you have a cool job? This is, you have some really fun experiences.
It's funny. I think it depends on who is asking, and I probably wouldn't. I mean, I'd be like, yeah, it's great when I get to work. It's the off days that you have to worry about keeping yourself healthy and ready for the on days. And that's like, there's people that just could never. It's a very gypsy life, and there's no guarantees. So it's challenging in that respect. But like, for example, John, if you asked me that question, I would look at you and I would try and assess your demographic. And I would explain how there's this movie, Remember the Titans. Are you a football fan?
Yes.
So there's an opening and closing monologue in that movie, and that's me. So you might be like, oh, cool, I know that movie. Or, Marietta, be like, you might be, like if a woman from like 20 to 30, I would say, and I'm not trying to age you, sorry. I'm just saying, like a younger woman, I would be like, do you know this cartoon series Totally Spies? Like, I would try and like affect who, like, what's their demographic. Cause I have, like my dad loved that I worked on the Blacklist. That was his favorite show to watch. So, it just would depend on who I'm talking to, because it is like very, very, the gamers, like there's some game stuff I did, Metal Gear, like things like that. I would consider my audience, but
Yeah,
before
cool.
I answered.
Muriette, you got a cool story?
Yes. Well, I love being part of Anpanman. I'm the teacher in it, Miss Mimi. And I got to do like over 13 movies as the teacher, and it's on Tubi. So that's just like cool for me. I mean, you walk in and you like make up a voice, and it's just so exciting. And then like, kids can like, recognize it a little bit. So for me, that's my favorite, because my mom was a teacher in Cuba. So that now I get to kind of be a teacher, but a voice actress in America. So I don't know. I think that's kind of cool.
That is cool. That is cool. Jennifer, how about you? Good story?
I think my favorite story is I'm a bit of a I like to stir stuff up. I like to break down barriers. And I think my favorite thing is that I do that in my career. When I first started in LA, they would send me these auditions for a commercial, and I had been doing commercials for several years in Birmingham and Atlanta, so I knew what copy, how to interpret that copy. And they'd send me like the role, you're going to read for woman number 2. And I was like, okay, who's going to read for announcer? And they're like, well, they want a guy. I'm like, I know. Can I do it anyway? I literally just bugged the crap out of them until they let me start reading for these announcer things, because I know enough to know announcer is repeat business. That's what I want. And I did it. And I busted through. This was in the mid 90s. And by 2002, I think it was, I could not turn on the TV or radio without hearing myself. I was like, boom. And then in games, the men, and look, I love men. I'm the mom of a man. A boy, but I just, we all know there's inequity out there. And I'm so grateful I got to be the female lead in the Mass Effect franchise, where the female lines were identical to the male. Everything about it broke the gender barrier. It broke so many barriers. And to have the privilege of kicking down doors and opening up the party for everybody is my favorite thing. So, yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. All right. Question time for the audience, and then we'll come back to do 1 or 2 more of the scripted. So Allie, I'm going to go with you first. I'm going to spotlight you so everybody can see you. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Awesome. Thank you. So first of all, thank you so much for doing this. This is so fun getting to see all of you, a little blast from the past, totally spies. I did grow up on that. Yeah, I'm that 20-something-year-old that did grow up on that. So thank you. So my question is for Jennifer. At the beginning, you mentioned a website that you've been working on with a lot of friends for voice acting tips. I'm not sure would you mention the name?
Yeah, it's it's acting.skillsub.life. That's ACT. No, acting.skillsub.life. Yeah, we have guides and everything, and specific steps. Actually, Andrea is one of our coaches. Really proud of the fact that we started with just like 20 some coaches, but they all have to be proven working actors who know what works today. And for the working actors, there are casting. You can get a hold of the casting director who casts that thing you want to work on, that game, that animated series, and you can book time with them. And it's by the minute, so you can afford it. So you can actually find out, like, realistically, where are my skills at? What do I need to do? And there's and voice directors from this thing or that thing. And there's now 86 different coaches. Like, I'm so excited about this. Thank you for asking.
Well, thank you for telling me. I'm excited to check it out.
I'm going to add in too, as being a part of this platform from the beginning, the way she has done this is so user friendly and so like lifting up the actors on all levels, like from the coaches to the beginners. Like, our whole goal is voiceover actors for actors with actors, like and casting directors, but like it's a positive, like helpful, kind, and easy to use platform. I can't say enough good about it.
Thank you. Because
awesome. Thank you.
There's such a thing that happens. I'm so glad you brought that up, Drea, because there's a thing that happens where people, get competitive, etc. And the truth is, there is so much to go around, because it is now, like Mariette's saying, it's a global business. You can do this from anywhere. You do not have to move anymore. You can have an amazing career anywhere and be a star. Be like, prolific and feeling super successful and proud of yourself. And the key is that I believe all boats rise together. Like, we link arms and we uplift each other. No matter where you are, like, look around your peers. This is who you're going to rise with. And it's so beautiful.
Good. Thank you very much, Allie. And Jennifer, I got a couple people in the chat box that asked if you could put the website in the chat. So when you get a chance, if you could jump over there and do that. All right, Deshaun, you are up next. So I'm going to add your spotlight so people can see you. Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay.
Hey, Deshaun.
Hi, this is actually pretty amazing. And I didn't, I looked up Miss Hale, and I see DC movies, which I'm also a fan of. And what I wanted to ask was, when you and Miss Baker met, what was like the first cartoon you two did?
Totally Spies.
Oh,
And we did that on and off for years, and it's such a joy. Andrea is one of my favorite people, and I love that we got to do that show together. And it has gone away and come back several times. I think the most recent iteration of it, they have decided to pay the actors less, I'll be honest with you, and they didn't even ask us if we wanted to be in it. But I don't look at that. I look at all the seasons we did do together, and that was so joyous.
And I wish them the best in what they're doing now. But
Indeed,
yeah,
indeed.
it was a gift. It was a huge gift to get to work on that show because of this relationship mostly. And also the guest stars we had on that, like I was surrounded all of a sudden with these just top tier voice actors that I had not been able to, I hadn't been in that arena before. So it was like a baptism by joy and love, not fire. Like it was amazing. Yeah.
okay. And have you two like did like an anime together, like voice an anime?
I've only done one or couple of animes, and that was just because it was a direct request from a director who I absolutely so deeply respect and was thrilled to get to work with. Mary Elizabeth McGlynn gave me the opportunity to audition for those, and so I happened to book it, and I was thrilled to work with her. But I don't do a lot of anime. Haven't had time.
Well,
I'm in Detective Conan. I'm in
What-
Detective Conan. It's on Tubi right now. So if you want to see it, case closed.
There you go.
I was just going to say, when Totally Spies first came out, they were calling that anime. I mean, that's how long ago it was. They were like, this is anime. And now we know the difference, but it did kind of have a different feel to it when it first came out than the average cartoon.
Jennifer, I wanted to jump in because you mentioned something, and it pertains to a question in the chat about you can do this from home, you can do this from anywhere. The question is, talk a little bit about your home setup, the technical side of things, of what you use to do your recording, and then we'll go to Andrea as well.
Yeah, I want to address that there are a few levels of this. When you're just starting out, if you're in that position, all you need is whatever you would FaceTime your grandma with, your laptop, whatever. That's all you need. Do not spend money on a bunch of equipment in the beginning. Please don't, because you don't know what area of VO or VA is going to call to you. So just wait. But once you get there, let's say you're doing more promo stuff, there's kind of a type of equipment that you need. I found this microphone in the before times, and I honestly highly recommend this system. You can either order online from someplace that can send you stuff where you can return it, or go to an audio house, like drive to a place that has an audio house. And I had one line of commercial copy, one line of animation copy, and one line of promo copy that I had memorized, like it's a sentence. And I did it identically each time, and they would put up each microphone, and I would do the 3 lines, change the microphone, do the 3 lines, change the microphone, like over and over. And I think I tried 8 or 9 different mics. And then this is a long time ago. So I left with a CD that I put in my car, and I listened to it, and I got some space from the event, and just so I could really listen clearly. And this baby jumped out and said, "I love your voice." And I was like, okay, there it is. Now, it was expensive back then, but there's some killer USB mics out right now. To me, there are tiers. Like when you're just learning, just use your computer, use your phone, use whatever. Don't spend your money on gear, spend it on education, because this is a thing that I think I call subconscious avoidance. People will put their time and attention into tech or into setups, into all this stuff, rather than turn and face the very challenging terrain of learning something internally in your body and your brain that you don't know how to do. So don't do that. Don't buy gear till you're ready to book. Okay. And then you'll know what kind of gear. And then when you're booking, like some of this first sort of free stuff you do, or the lower paying but cool stuff, or maybe you jump right up in level. Don't let me put limits on you there. You can get away with a really great, like an AT2020 or that's a USB mic, something like that. That's really simple and really affordable. It's less than $200 typically. you know, and you don't need like, I can't get it to lift up, but I have an Apollo twin. So I have it's a Bronner Phantom going down into an Apollo twin, which then connects to some console that I do not touch, because if I touch it, I screw it up. I Zoom with people who control my computer and they set it up. I'm like, good. And I panic if I push a button. I'm like, oh no, can you Zoom with me because I screwed it up? So keep it simple, keep it what you can understand. I did 2 different animated shows yesterday in here, and I recorded on Twisted Wave, my backup. It's a very simple system. The thing that people overlook is the room around them. The room around you is everything, and you don't need to spend a fortune. When I first moved here in the pandemic, I was in the middle of recording a couple games, a couple big projects, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, No More Heroes. We were in mid-production, and we had to pick up, and I had not had time to construct my very specifically built studio yet. And so I just took a drill and a furniture pad and just drilled that sucker in a big circle around me, and like stripped up some carpet off the floor because I knew I was going to demo it anyway, and drilled that into the wall in front of me. And then I took like a blanket or a sweater, or actually it was a towel, and I placed it over the little makeshift wood shelf. And these are all soft surfaces because everything is reflective. This is actually, this hides a very thin wood frame that I'm very proud of because I don't, I'm not a builder, but I built it. And it's got acoustic panels inside from Amazon, and then I just put a piece of fabric over it that I loved. Those wood panels back there break up that wall, that very continuous surface of drywall, which is reflective, because you do want some reflective surfaces, not a ton, but a few. And they break up the sound because sound moves in these waves like this, right? And you want to interrupt that movement. And this room is, this all speaks to your space, is not a perfect square. It is, I was lucky I got to build like a whole space. It's 8 by 8.5. It's not 8 by 8 because when you get a perfect square, you get weird stuff happening with your sound. George Whittam is where I learned that, George the Tech. Really good stuff there.
That's awesome information. Andrea, you have a door open that looks like a little recording room behind you. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I during COVID had to no longer go anywhere. So I had this space in my house, which is a very high closet. So it's narrow but tall. So I actually dropped the ceiling, and I built I had a help with, I put wood on the walls, and then I used bunting for quilts, and staple gunned that to the wood. And then I just found a fabric and overlaid that, and drop the ceiling. So it is a small box that is, and then I had these furniture pads that my mom covered in the same, I don't know if you can see the same fabric, that are on the door because the door is not very big, very thick. And then I got some curtains in front of those. I mean, this is very much DIY sound booth because it was, had to get it done. Couldn't construct a space in my house, just converted a closet. And I also used Twisted Wave. And I also I still have one of my USB mics that was one of my original mics, which is an Apogee. And I travel with it because it's easy to travel with. So if I am somewhere and I, need to send something in, this would not be something that I would actually do a job on, but I can do some great auditions. And then if I get a job, I can find a local studio. I've worked in studios in Australia and Colorado. There's places where you are, they have the right space. So if you book the job, and they like you enough, they will let you go somewhere else to a studio. But I travel with this one. And then my first was the blue mic. My first home studio mic was the original blue USB mic. But I did upgrade during COVID. I was doing post-production in there. So I have it's not the fancy one. It's a knockoff of the fancy one. It's a warm audio, and it's like Jen, it loved me. It loved my voice. And I use that in my booth, and I have it set up in a way that I don't even like to touch it, as I touch it as little as possible. I use a Focusrite 212, Scarlett Focusrite, and my Twisted Wave, and on my laptop, and a great mic. That's my setup at home. Yeah.
Cool. Now, Mariette, do you have a setup at home, or do you have to go somewhere still to record?
I go to studios, but I do have at home. I got this at Best Buy, and it's pretty good. And then also I got some really good curtains, and then on the inside I hot glue gunned the inside all with the foam paneling, so it's all inside of a closet. It has like double paneling, and then I go in there, and the sound is perfect for my house. I mean, I've done a couple of animations from my house, and I do the dubbing and any kind of retakes and anything just from here from my closet. So I think that that's a great thing about technology, is that it's going to allow inclusion and diversity, because now people like me can, just like record something and end up on Amazon, end up on Netflix. Like it's just insane. So if you have imagination and you can create it, like that's all you need. You just need that passion to like go forward.
Absolutely. I want to add to this because we came out with a lot of complicated stuff there. And Mariette, you talking about your closet reminded me, like, closets are the best. You don't need anything. Like, I know Rachel McFarland, she's on American Dad and a few other shows. She's works all the time, and she works out of her closet, and it's perfect. You just need varied surfaces with a lot of soft stuff, and a closet is that. Like, I have done auditions. I've been traveling and I forgot my remote setup. I've done auditions on this and booked the job. And it says I was in a laundry room, like the worst room ever. And like, it worked. I've been in hotel rooms and jam my mic between the cushions of it, like a chair, threw a towel over my head, and like
I've been under a duvet. I've been under a duvet with pillows and kneeling on the bed with it, and like, I've done that and booked the job. So
it doesn't have to be fancy. Yep. Just has to be quiet.
Okay, so I want to let everybody know that Jennifer has to leave us in just a minute or two, but we're going to continue with some of these questions. And if she drops off, don't be alarmed. That's actually on purpose. So Jade, I'm going to go to you next. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
I'm Jade. So I'm new to getting into voiceovers. Thank you so much for this and for your time and all your expertise. This has been very helpful to me as I'm new to all of this. I want to ask you, is there a particular agent or casting director I should be contacting? Because I have agents for my modeling and commercial work, but there hasn't really been any voiceover work.
I can speak to that. Don't contact anybody until you've built skills. And because this is the thing happens all the time, and I now running Skills Hub .life, I see it all the time. People get things out of order. They go to get an agent before they've built the skills. And there's that expression, which is not a hard and fast rule, but there's some validity to it, which is you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So you want to really load your skills. You want to really load it up. Like I always think of horse jumping, as Andrea said, horses. When you're running to a really high jump, you don't let that horse run flat out. You hold it back and you build and you build and you build and you build. And when you get to that jump, then you let it go. Then you let it jump. So build your skills first. And that means learning from a whole bunch of different people. And I promise you, especially with the way you sound, someone on that path is going to go, oh my God, oh my God, you need to meet this person. But first, get your skills so solid that somebody could hand you a script for anything and you know exactly how you're going to do it. Yes. It is never about doing it right. It's about how you're going to do it, specific to voiceover, specific to voice acting. So I would study with a few different people. And of course, I think of the site because we have it set up that way, but like reach out, like Andrea, you can find her through the site, and work with somebody, build your skills first. All right. Then only after professionals are telling you, yes, you are ready, like a few different ones, like first work with working actors who are doing what you want to do. Then go to the buyers and study from them, because buyers are casting directors, voice directors, people who are going to hire you. And that will organically evolve to you the right, powerful agent that you need to work with.
Yes, thank you. I am starting to set up my gig like on Fiverr. I don't know.
Be careful on Fiverr.
Or what you would suggest about that.
Be careful. Okay. I just keep going back to my site, and I don't mean to do this, but our site is built to solve problems. That is why we're there. We have a specific class called Where's the Work? It's taught by our coach, Emma Sherjarko, and it's spelled Sherrziarko. And it is about how to conduct yourself on these sites in a way that you don't get taken advantage of. Because when it comes to working, and this is to everybody who works in the marketplace, you need to look at it from two different angles. Number one, what is right and fair to me? Am I being compensated? Do I have control of my voice? Never, ever sign away your rights to AI. Ever. You have screwed yourself and you've screwed the rest of us. Do I have control? Do I have compensation? And do I have consent for them to use my voice? There is an organization called NAVA. It's the National Association for Voice Actors, and it's navavoices.org. Again, navavoices.org. They do incredible things, like if you're a voice actor and you don't have health insurance, they have a group rate that you can participate in to get health insurance. They have created what's called an AI rider. A rider is an add-on to any work contract that you work on. It is free to download, and you put it on every job you're doing. Okay? Do not let them take your voice. Do not. It will damage you in a few ways. You will miss out on money. You will also have it hatcheted together to make really poor performances that will make you sound like you're actually a bad actor because people can't tell the difference. So that is really important. Okay. So navavoices.org, download their AI rider. So that's all about protecting yourself, right? And also your working conditions, because there are things that are vocally stressful that will end you sometimes for days, weeks, months, and some people years. And you want to be in a situation where you're physically protected. I have a phrase that I use when directors don't understand, and some don't because they haven't done it. You know, if I need to demonstrate it, I'll say, you know, talk like you're in a bar and it's really loud. Now do that for 4 hours. Now you got a job the next day you have to show up for. You can't. I did it. I was on NPR once. Scott Simon was interviewing me and he did it and he was like, oh, and it's instant understanding. That's protecting you. The other half of this, because the world is much bigger than each of us, and this community is much bigger than each of us, everything you agree to, you're signing other people on for. So when you go on Fiverr and you're like, it's okay, it's this, you've just tied all the rest of us to the rate that you agreed to because you educated that person that this is what it takes to hire a voice actor. It's hard to do in the beginning. And you listen, that's what what Fiverr's for. That's what some non-union marketplaces are for. Like non-union can make an incredible career. But sometimes, like if your aspirations are going to the union market, the non-union is where you begin and where you build. That's what I did for many years before I moved to LA. But know your value. And the most important thing in this entire life to me is listen to that voice inside yourself. Is this right? Is this right for me? And you say yes or no based on that, trusting that there are going to be so many more opportunities. Release the FOMO. There will be more because you show up each day. Because I liken it to the way I frame practice on skillsub.life is like, it's like laying down a piece of paper. You know, you've just laid your first step. And this is the same for owning your value and showing up for opportunities. You lay down enough pieces of paper and you got some cardboard. You lay down enough pieces of paper that make cardboard and you've got wood. And that's a foundation. So you stand for yourself because we need you to. Yeah. Yeah. So I hope that's
Thank you
helpful.
very much, Jade. And Jennifer, I'm watching your time for you, so I know you have to duck off.
No, I'm going to push it 4 more minutes and then I do
okay,
have to go.
Dave, I'm
That
going to
was
come
so
to you in
good, Jen.
one
That was
second.
so well said.
Thank you.
A quick question from the chat. Can any of you share advice for getting work on reading audiobooks? Anybody
ACX.
have? Say that again?
ACX. It is an audiobook exchange site for authors. We have I'm doing this, but it's true. We have a whole audiobook course. We've got coaches who are specifically audiobook narrators come in and pick their brains. Like having a mentor is everything. So definitely you can save yourself so much time and pain by talking to somebody who's actually done it.
Good. Dave, go ahead and unmute yourself. And oh, wait, did I lose Dave? I lost Dave.
No, I'm here.
I'm just going to add on. Sorry,
There you
Dave. I'm just going to add on for those of you that are doing non-union work, like what Jen was saying. You can access what union wages are, like what are the parameters that union workers are getting, and you can fight in non-union to get those same parameters. It will be hard, but there is a blueprint of what has been determined to be safe, fair working conditions through the union that you can ask for as a non-union actor. And I just recommend you knowing, at least being knowledgeable about what that is and what the difference is, so that you know what the general marketplace in union work is receiving, and you can fight to get at least as much, if not more, in different ways, because you won't have pension and health and things. Maybe they can give you more upfront or something like that. But we need you to also try and make it equitable. Don't give it away. Don't give it away.
Yeah, good. Dave, go ahead.
Hey,
and ask your
so
question.
I'm sorry. So just as like the non-union person, I just want to I just want to speak up. Being a minority, I don't have the chance to say no, so I have to say yes. I'm not being weak by taking jobs that make less money.
Yeah.
These are just what I'm offered. So it's not like I can be like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna need this to be $100. Like, no, if it's $25, it's $25. If you don't get this job, we got 100 other people. Okay, 100 other people can be nurse number 2 in the background of this voice acting. So I have a little bit of a different, maybe I'm like a little more street of it, you know. I try not to do it for free. I never signed to the AI because there is an AI dubbing company here in South Florida. They tried to buy my voice for $600 forever. Forever. I was like, no, like no. So that I will not do, but I can't really fight a lot for my rates. I just try and like do it in like the moral way. You know, I'm not trying to pay anybody off for jobs or do anything like immoral to directors or like, you know, go out drinking or anything. I just try to get the job like with my knowledge and like try my best, you know. So,
and that's why we need to fight for you. We fight for you too. We fight for you every day. I remember when in this game strike of 2016, I was on the committee and I had a meeting with a bunch of non-union people in my house. I was like, how do we help you? How do we standardize? How do we support you? Because your worth, Mariette, is even more given your specific perspective. And I remember those days. I remember being in Birmingham, Alabama and raising my rates and just terrified I was going to lose my income. And I didn't, because I did it a little bit at a time. I did it $5 at a time, literally. Like $10 scared me and I did it, you know? And so, yeah, absolutely. It's a complex situation, but you are no less valuable than
You are valuable. You know,
you are just as valuable as me, Andrea, and all the rest of us.
100%.
Yes.
Yeah. Dave, go ahead and unmute and go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here today. I go back to the halcyon days of South Florida when there were so many studios and you could do union gigs. I think I would average sometimes like about 5 a week. And it was just wonderful. It was, thank God I have a 50-year career in broadcasting I left behind, but at the same time I was doing a lot of freelancing and it was just so wonderful here. And then came the new technology and it became not just competing with the voiceover actors in South Florida, but it became international. I remember one of the gigs I did when they had ISDN was it was actually a blind voiceover performer up in Iceland, and and we were doing a voiceover together, and it was so remarkable, the technology, that I could actually, he was reading Braille and I could hear his finger going over the Braille. And the technology back then, I was on the AFTRA National Board. I was the AFTRA National Vice President on the SAG National Board. And up in New York doing it was a national board meeting, and I got a call from Burger King to do an industrial, and I had the very early incarnation of iPad and some kind of lousy mic, but twisted wave on the iPad, a blanket over my head and a flashlight, and boom, I got done. And I said, geez, I hope that's what you wanted. And they loved it. The other impediment that I have is being 6'6" and wanting to act. And if it's not a big giant stooge getting beaten up and killed on Walker, Texas Ranger, or any of those kind of things, I'm doing voiceovers. I volunteer for Insight for the Blind, and I have a wonderful setup. My son set up for me. I got a Tascam Mixcast, and I got a nice mic. And yesterday I did the Psychology Today, and I did Jack and Jill magazines for Insight for the Blind. So, you know, I encourage those of you who are just beginning to see if you can get that kind of experience too. Take some magazines, read them out loud, record yourself, and see what you're capable of range. And again, my first job as a SAG actor was in 1980 with Jennifer Jason Leigh, doing 3 different voiceover parts on the film Eyes of a Stranger. I was a broadcaster on radio, broadcaster on TV, and also a cop on the phone. So, you know, again, being 6'6", thank you very much for the voiceover career, because you know, whenever I would go for an on-camera audition, it was like for a car commercial, I'd make a Cadillac look like a Volkswagen. So, but I just want to echo everything that you all said about really committing yourself. And the one thing that when I taught voiceover classes is at the time there were cassettes, and they would put their voiceover deals on cassette, and they'd put a picture of themselves on the cassette, and I say, no, don't do that, you know. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you for everything you do. This behind me is not my studio, it's the Ideal studio, but no.
All right. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
I'm gonna pull you down.
Can
Daniel,
wait?
go
Oh wait,
ahead.
Dave.
Yep,
Oh
go
wait,
ahead.
Dave. Can I just say it's so awesome that you work with the blind and everything, because since I was 5 years old, I had severe myopia and astigmatism. So when I graduated college, they actually implanted lenses in my eyes. So my first job with MTV, I still had stitches in my eyes, and then on top of that, they did LASIK. So like if you guys see like a glare in my eye, it's my implants. And for me, that was such a big deal, because I feel like I hear the world in a different way. So I think that's really like helped me be a voice actor. So that's amazing that you work with the blind. That's so cool.
Oh, God bless. Thank you.
All right, Daniel, I am going to add the spotlight so people can see you. Go ahead and ask your question. Make sure you unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you, everybody. Once again, I do thank you all for such a wealth of knowledge. I was just taking notes also while you guys were talking. I'm gonna make my question real quick, because I know I've been actually wanting to jump into this space of doing like voiceovers for like audiobooks, but I wanted to know, I guess, training wise, because I guess I'm not a perfectionist, but I want to make sure I'm giving people like my very best. So what, I guess, sorry, my voice. So I guess that's one thing I guess I wanted to find. I guess what training, I guess, would you guys suggest as far as like making sure that, you know, you want to put like your best foot forward, so I got, you know, can actually get more work coming in once to actually do jump into that space? Because I do want it to, you know, really jump into like, you know, doing like, you know, I guess getting my voice for doing like books, audiobooks, as well as voiceovers. Because my main thing is really the music. I produce music, but I really wanted to jump into that space also, to see, you know, how that would actually, you know, help me in, you know, my business also. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. Andrea?
I don't want this to be like an infomercial for Skills Hub, but it's kind of like that is the place. There's nothing like it as far as, especially if you're, you know, living not in Los Angeles. Like if you live in New York or LA, you can sign up for amazing classes, amazing studio time, be working with people that are actually working, and be in person with them. I don't know that that's not happening in my area right now. That doesn't exist in my area, but remotely, Skills Hub, and you know, as a coach on there, as a student on there, because I have done when I have a really challenging audition, or my dream is I want to do a voice of a car commercial. Like I want to have that deep, which is not obviously not natural for me. So I don't know that I'll get there, but I love, that's like this dream that I have of this really authoritative. So I work at it, I practice it, and I get coaching, and to be able to just go in this room and get online and be talking to people that are working it, that are casting it, that are doing it in my space. And it's literally, you pay by the minute. Like you can go, I'm at 10 minutes, $3 a minute, or, you know, you can pick what you want, what fits you and what you want to learn, and you can create your own agenda on it. So again, I'm not trying to, it's just a great platform, and it's nothing like it. There's nothing like it available. So that's my recommendation, acting.skillshub.life.
Mariette, you got any advice?
Yes. So for me, when I started, something that is just seems kind of very simple, but I put the subtitles on the news. So I make sure you have to read every single word very perfect, and make sure you enunciate. So I'd put on the subtitles and make sure like, okay, wait, how did they say that? Like Worcestershire, how do you say that? Just make sure any words that you can't say, like not in front of a mic, make sure you can say it in front of a mic. That's my killer word. I don't put that in any script. Worcestershire, I don't know how to say it.
Thank you very much, Daniel. All right, last question from the audience, and then we're going to wrap up with another question or two. Davinia, go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, thank you guys so much for being here, and I appreciate everything that you said. It's very educational, and I just wanted to note too that I really appreciate everything Jennifer said about knowing your value and understanding the business, because I made the mistake of doing, signing contracts I shouldn't have been signing early on in my career. I started back in 2009 and, thought a lot of the same things that Marietta, you said that you were feeling, but I'm a minority too. And now I know that stuff is not true. I have value and I can fight for my value. So now I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA, and the SAG-AFTRA Foundation actually has free voiceover classes. They have free home setup classes. They have free animation voiceover classes. And the training is important. Get yourself trained, just like everything you're saying, so that you don't make those mistakes of signing contracts you shouldn't sign. Because unless we all stand up and rise up, we're just gonna stay at the bottom. So
good.
Thank you for that. That's such a good point. SAG-AFTRA Foundation is amazing. They have so many things it's supportive things, even financial during, I know a very good friend who has been a working actor for years and years and years. He was going to lose his home during this strike, and SAG-AFTRA Foundation has supported him, and it is a wonderful organization. And every time I pay my dues, I put a little percentage into that, because one day I will probably need them. And if I don't, I've done something right, because usually this business, this life is very, you never know. So It's good to help out. And they have so many skill classes, and it's all part of your dues. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I want to give each of you an opportunity. Jennifer had to step off, as we talked about, but her website is in the chat box. So I want each of you guys to give, IMDb pages or websites or anything like that, so everybody knows how to find you. Andrea, you go first.
I am on all the social media platforms. I'm Andrea E. Baker on a lot of them, and then just Andrea Baker on other ones. I don't really I'm not promoting anything right now at the moment. I'm trying to start something. I'm really interested in a huge fan of podcasts. And I feel like I have so much to talk about that I want my own podcast, but I haven't started it yet. So I really don't have anything specific to plug. I do try and make people laugh on TikTok, and you feel free to join me on TikTok if you want to.
There you go. Mariette?
Unmute. Yes, so every week I have a new episode of Topo Gigio coming out. Topo Gigio is the classic Italian mouse, but we put it into English. I play the little bunny part of his G team, and then I'm also like the principal or a random kung fu mom. Goodbye Monster just came out a couple months ago. That's me right there, Jouet. Also Miss Mimi and all the Anpanman films. So I think there's going to be like about 15 or 18 of these movies, and I got to be on them. It's pretty crazy. Space Dogs, Tropical Adventure. I played Strelka. It was real space dogs that actually went out into orbit and came back, and they came back alive. So yeah, I just had random stuff. Oh, Inspector Sun was just in the movie theaters at the same time as the Taylor Swift movie, which that was really crazy to take my parents that like hardly like their English accent is just like it's and they were so proud like to hear my voice through the speakers in the movie theater. So hopefully maybe one day I'll be able to maybe be SAG, but right now I'm non-union, and here in Miami we do a lot of dubbing and stuff, but also I have a side job. So like, maybe you want to do voice acting but you can't do it full on, you could do it as a side gig. And a lot of these dubbing companies, if you follow them on Instagram, they'll do castings and you can send them your voice. Especially, I think somebody that had spoken to us, I think Jade, your voice is so is so high pitched, like you could totally book some stuff, you know? So just follow your dreams, you guys. Sometimes people are just looking for random voices. I thought I was talking to a plumber and it was the owner of an advertising company. And I got a commercial for 2 years for Miami-Dade Animal Services. So I don't know, like just be nice to everybody and like try your best. Like that's literally, it really works. I don't know.
Kindness
And-
matters. No matter who you're talking to, treat everyone the same because you never know.
Yes, yes. Now, I think I got to most of the questions in the chat. I tried to get those. If I didn't, or if anybody else in the audience has questions and they didn't get a chance to raise their hand, please send them to me on email. It's the same email address that you got your confirmation to join. It's info@filmflorida.org. You can send emails to that. That'll get to me and I'll get them out to any of our panelists if they to get them answers if you need anything. But I want to make sure everybody gets their questions answered, whether it was live or after the fact on email. But that's going to wrap up another edition of Film Florida Friday. Thank you very much to our panelists, Mariette, Andrea, and Jennifer for being with us. And thanks to all of you for being with us as well. As always, thanks to Katie Collins for helping me wrangle and prepare for Film Florida Friday each month. We're going to be off for the holidays until February, so look for email blasts and social media posts about our next edition of Film Florida Friday that will come out in January after the new year. As always, thanks to our Film Florida members for their continued support. If you're not a member of Film Florida, we hope you'll consider joining at filmflorida.org. Keep up with everything we're doing on our social media pages and make sure you check out the Film Florida podcast, which is available on most major podcast episodes. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Thanks for being here today, everybody, and have a great holiday.
Thank you so much, Film
John.
Florida.
Thanks for fighting for Florida and filming in Florida. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for being members of Film Florida. We appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Keep using your imagination, guys.